Okay, Matthew Obst, welcome.
Thank you.
So it is exciting because I've had the joy of consulting with you a few times and continuing because it what you speak about really resonates with me, and I thought it's a wonderful opportunity to bring you on here and share you with the listeners.
It's my honor. Thank you.
Good, good. So well, you are a shaman and you are a Scorpio, so we're gonna go deep. Just preparing the listeners for that. We're gonna go deep right away, I hope. Because my first question is about how you view the nature of reality, really, because I know you're talking to me about clearing the karmic imprint and not just, I mean, because when you come to someone like you have an issue in life and you can just heal that on a superficial level, or you can go to the roots, is how I understand it. And you go to the roots and figure out the cause of why things are not flowing. And then what you do is bring in spirits and ancestors. So now my question is, how can it help us in our everyday life to bring in ancestors to help heal? How is the
Mhm.
connection? How is it that you work with that?
Yeah, so I think the way I would describe, so there's a couple things here. So one is that I think what you're getting at is the question is maybe along the lines of how do our ancestors and healing our ancestors uh participate in us being more healed or in this lifetime. Is this kind of what you're granting at or getting at?
Yeah, like how does it relate to the root of the issues that we are in now?
Yeah. So the way now first of all, I just want to start by saying like the work of the shaman, the work that I do is very mysterious, right? So there's a mystery around it, and I'll do my best to impart my understanding. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything because I ultimately don't know anything, but I channel information is how I channel energy, I channel spirits that are doing healing work. And so, to the best of my ability, I'm going to put words to some things that are very mysterious. It is mysterious. And I'm not going to sit here like everything isn't exactly black and white. But what I would say is that ultimately, for us to be our most healed self in this lifetime, um, there's something that you made mention of that I call karmic imprints, karmic wounds, and these can be ancestral. So they can be from this lifetime, they can be from our past lives, they can be from wounds of our ancestors. And if you are here on this planet right now, which you and I are, and the listeners are, uh, you've been here a very long time energetically. And when you think back to the earliest, you know, incarnations of humankind, um, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years ago, we are carrying the disruptive karmic woundings and patterns of millions of years. And it's in our energy field. And so the way I understand it in one respect is almost as if our vibration of our field, our chakra system, may become slightly misaligned. So we might have health issues in this lifetime because there's a karmic imprint, a wound of an ancestor potentially in our gut, in, you know, it might be in a lower chakra, a root chakra. It might be manifesting somewhere in the body as a low vibration or a density, so that just that pure highest vibratory light that we actually are at our core is unable to fully move through us. The chi, or the energy flow, as is described in the East, that this chi gets blocked and stuck in different areas. And so that might come across as a health issue. It might come across as issues in regards to love, or acquiring happiness in this lifetime, or success, relationship issues with friends, family members, or partners. Like it, there's like so it could be cancer. I mean, it could be literally like the energy flow's not going through my lower chakra and I develop an illness as a result. And so by the way that I do tend to work, and it isn't exactly like, I wouldn't say I choose to work this way, it's more like the way spirit works through me, is to get to the root causes, which may be ancestral, like you're describing. So there may be a wounded ancestor involved, to unravel that wound, to heal the ancestor, and then it clears kind of forward through the timeline, if you will, clearing out that karmic wounding, to bring us more clarity and more light, and a sense of more peace in our being.
Mm. Yeah.
If that makes sense. A
No,
lot there, but
yeah, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. I just wanna let you go into a flow of of these wisdom portals that I feel you are that you have access to, and like you said, you're channeling it, and I can definitely feel that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of logic that going to the roots would be going to the ancestors, going all the way back, and then but then is the logic that energy is then transferred onto us, and is it possible to heal? I mean, why haven't it happened? Why do we have to have like a shaman help heal it? Why doesn't it just kind of sort itself out through the timelines?
Yeah, well, this is a good question, and I'm gonna just take a second, because there's actually some energy here in the field that we're sharing. I'm
Mm.
just gonna ask some of my guides to just, anything that isn't really a part of this session, just to kind of guide it out. I would say there's probably some ancestors present that are very interested in what we're talking about, and so I welcome them to be here, but not be in mana or my energy field. And I'm just calling on my most appropriate allies just to guide any of these energies out to, there's actually, I've placed a viewing room above, so they can go up to the viewing room, they can watch what's happening in our interview, but I'm asking them to not participate. Any of my guides can guide them up to the viewing room, or up to the feast in the forest, or to whatever threshold my helping spirits see fit. I'm just trying trying to clear the air a little bit. There's something present, and it's just, I think it's just curious ancestors,
Mm.
and we welcome them, but want them to just sort of take their energy a little bit out of the space.
Mm.
Okay, that feels better. I don't know if you felt any of that energy, but I definitely, there's just some energy. There's like a curious sort of like, what do they talk? This happens sometimes when we begin talking about these things. There's ancestors, you know, sometimes what's happened, Mana, is that our ancestors sometimes fear this type of work.
Ah.
And it might be because they were in a time period where this type of work was considered witchcraft. You could be burned at the stake. And I'm just assuring that any beings that are present, that what we're talking about and the work that I do is for the highest good of all beings of the universe. It's really through divine providence. It's through light that this work is getting done, through love and compassion. There's nothing to fear about the conversation energetically. Okay, that feels better. So yeah, so I'm sorry. So let me I want to answer your question. You tell me again what you were asking because I know I got distracted.
I have so many questions for you. I can't even. So, I mean, my next official question is the effect of unhealed ancestors to the living. And I think what I just asked before is kind of related to that. Like, why? I mean,
Oh, and why can't it just happen, this sort of thing?
yeah.
So this is a very deep question. And what I would say this comes down to is why are we here on this planet at this time? And why have we manifested here?
Mm,
Um, and what I would say is I believe we're here to discover our truth. And in discovering our truth to become our most pure and healed self, that in a way, when we've taken on the manifested form, so of a human, we're manifesting. This is a manifest world, what might be described as Maya or samsara. There's the samsara, it means the suffering world in essence. This is the world in which we're suffering. And all you have to do is turn on the news.
yeah.
And you know that this is a world of suffering, isn't it? And so, but the question is what is suffering and why are we suffering? And in a way, this is getting to your question too. Why are we suffering wounds of our ancestors? Why do I have to see a shaman? And what I would say is you don't have to see a shaman. Nobody does. Um, but some of us are called to be at peace, to be at peace here now, to be happy. What does it mean to be at peace or to be happy? Is to overcome the suffering of this world. And there's many ways. I would say there isn't one way, right? And so seeing a shaman is one way.
Mm,
Some people go on a spiritual journey to attain enlightenment or to awaken to their truth, to have self-awareness. That is another path of releasing these wounds. They're in Sanskrit, I believe it's called vasanas. These karmic wounds or imprints. And so there's different paths to do it, but in a way, the wounds themselves are keeping a veil between us and our true reality. And our true reality is peace. It is harmony. It is happiness. It's just being your effortless being. And why is that so hard for some of us? Most of us? And I would say because the veil has been formed that's attaching us to the pain body, the pain of the attachment of the shape and the form. And that in essence, you are not your body and you're not your mind. And that you you do have a manifest body that's right here, and I'm looking at you. But when I'm looking at you, what I see is just pure consciousness. That this is that you are like an effortless just being, that energetically you are fully expansive, that there's no bounds to you. There's no earthly or universal bounds to who you really are, but because we feel so bound into the body and we identify as I'm my mind, I'm my body. And in essence, your spirit or your soul, that some people call it, is it's a holding ground of all the wounds of all the past. And even the ancestral woundings are within our energy field or our spirit. And so it's like a recorded uh uh it's like a disrupted recording of all the woundings we've gone through every iteration of our life on the planet and possibly before the planet. And as we attach to that, it's one thing Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, which is sort of a good way to word it, because it's like when we identify with this, we are gripped into a very narrow bandwidth, and it feels very restrictive, and we suffer. And of course we do, because if you're an infinite being and you're like, I'm this pain, I'm in this shape and this form, it's so narrow and restrictive. It feels like it's actually taking work for you to live your life and to sort of see through the veil, the blindfolds of ignorance. And we're very quickly talking about some very deep things.
That's what I love. That's what I love. Yeah.
Because I think in essence, we all want to be happy,
Mm.
right? And to be happy is to overcome this attaching to this and attaching to the wounding of the. So there's not more than one way to do it. And some spiritual teachers would say there's also no way to do it, meaning it's not a way.
Mm.
Like it's more of just I would describe it could be described as a subtle shifting of our perspective, of seeing past the mental construct and the thought forms in the mind. That, I mean, everything is being filtered through this, and in essence it's being filtered through your your senses, but also the veil of, I would call it ignorance is the spiritual term, the ignorance of seeing the world through not just the psychological constructed mind from this lifetime, but the woundings of our also of the past lives. And it can be very painful for many of us in this lifetime to be attached and to suffer those things. People with depression, anxiety, disease, different types of physical disorders. It really binds us into almost like a circular pattern of just like the suffering and the attachment and but there, what I believe is that most of us, or at some point there may be in someone's life that everything falls apart so badly. When I have clients come to me and they're like, my life is falling apart, and they're just, I'm about to be evicted from my house, I lost my job, my partner, left me, my, close loved ones died, whatever it is. I'm always, what I say to all of that? I'm like, yay. And the reason is because sometimes because and I'm not doing it from a place of like, I do have compassion, of course, actually, because I've gone through much of this stuff in my lifetime um as well. But the yay is because sometimes when we become so ingrained in our own misery, it's like a window or a doorway opens for us that we cry out.
Mm.
Like, this isn't it, is it? Like, help me. And that crying out can open up the heart. It can open up to start begin the clearing. And so one way that people do is they might come and say, well, can you help me? Can you help me to, and so, and is it me? Not really me. It's great spirit this, that moves through me in the form of um angels or different types of spirits and healing spirits and beings that are experts at that work. And so I like feel very grateful and blessed to be able to participate energetically and also bear witness to really profound shifts in healing for people that can be, like you said, very old and very deep.
Mm.
Begin to clear a path, and it can take time. It can take time to integrate that, and it's different for everybody.
Mm. Okay, just two small comments for that. Um, yeah, so you were talking about not only the psychology but also the karmic wounds that we tend to, or we do, have that in front of our eyes, like that is the filter that we see through. In evolutionary astrology, we actually see the psychology as the karmic wounds. You know what I mean? Like the person that we can see in the birth chart that does go all the way back to
I
it.
love that.
Yeah, incarnations that were where something was unhealed. That's the part that we are still in. That's still the way that we are blended personality wise because there is something that needs to be resolved.
I love this. No, this is what's coming up for me as you're saying these words, because there's something very true about what you're saying. And this is what you're getting at, is beginning to see through the veil, right? And like, the modern psychological construct might tell you like, well, your father or your mother and they did this, and there was a trauma wound, and it's man, and this is true too. This can be true. But what you're getting at is a deeper root. Why is this, so the way that appears to me is that, remember when I said that when I look at you, I see just pure consciousness?
I do remember that.
Ultimate, what's that?
I wonder how that looks.
Well, what it means is, and this is like it's hard to put words to these things because it's a paradox, and it's, to me, is the ultimate truth. But there's a non-dual reality here. What in Sanskrit we call it Vaita, it means non-duality, non-dual. The non-dual reality is that this is like the whole universe energetically is one thing. This is one. It's like the substratum of it all is just pure consciousness. In a way, it's as if when you go into a shop, a jewelry shop, and a gold shop, everything's made of gold. And so there's gold earrings, there's a gold necklace, there might be a gold tiara, bangles, whatever it is. There's everything is a gold watch. Do you see each thing in its shape or form, or do you see it as gold, right? Because it is all gold. You can melt it all back down into gold. And so what I'm saying is that you are gold. And one word for that is just consciousness. And that it's manifested in this shape and form. And in a way, until we work out those karmic wounds, the world is a mirror for your karmic wounds. So what happens to us that it feels tragic or traumatic or perhaps joyful, whatever it is a working out of that karma. It wants itself to be seen and noticed and elevated, have the light of pure awareness on it, so it can actually dissipate the low vibrational wounding and go away. That's why some people will be like, I always have money problems, I'm always losing money, or I'm always losing lovers, or I can't, I'm so lonely. It's like it happens over and over again. My parents rejected me, my high school girlfriend rejected me, my college girlfriend rejected me, my wife rejected, whatever. Why am I being rejected over and over again? Well, there's something that's coming up. It's the universal mirror, and it's shining this thing, and you can overcome it.
Yeah.
You can shine this light of pure awareness on it. And in the sense of the shamanic work is that there are beings present that maybe are not inhabiting bodies right now. They've been here a very long time, and they're experts at this. And so for somebody like myself, I've just been gifted, something I've done for many, many, many lifetimes, is this ability to communicate and sort of gather these experts at working out these wounds, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah. And the other thing I thought of when you were talking just before is the time when you said that to me in a consultation about, um, you said something like this, like, so Manna, in a way, it's good that you're not, the most successful interviewer that you really want to be, because otherwise you would not be here right now seeking healing and resolving this. So that's kind of stuck with me, like in a way, when my mind, when my thoughts would go into those spirals of where I want to go, I'm not there yet. thinking about, well, if I was, then I wouldn't be healing. I would be ignoring things, most likely, right?
Now, yeah, let me put it that, yes. And like one way, I don't want to trigger anybody who has a background in Christianity, but I believe this is a saying that maybe Jesus said. I think it was Jesus. I could be wrong on this, but there's an old saying that was like a wealthy person has as much chance of getting into heaven as you have to get a camel through the eye of a needle.
Yeah.
Now, what does this mean? Why is that? And there's way, it doesn't have anything to do with money per se, but sometimes when somebody has everything, there's a certain sense in a way, and this is perhaps my interpretation of this, but I've seen this energetically. They're less likely to come and be like, I need help, right? I mean, it was the profound suffering that awakened me to call out to want something different. And that calling was answered. And I believe the calling will be answered for those that are wanting peace, to be happy. I mean, this is to overcome the suffering of the world, to overcome the suffering. I mean, there are a handful of beings that are in recorded sort of spiritual historical contexts that have overcome the suffering of the
You
world.
talk about the human beings? What are you talking about?
Yeah, that people like, well, so Jesus would be one, Buddha, Krishna, there's beings that have, while still in a body,
Mm.
overcome. And I think that's for everybody. Like, meaning, I don't think that's just like, we like to be like, oh, well, people will be like, oh, I could never be Buddha. Well, you are Buddha.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a level of it's a vibrational overcoming of a non-attachment to the world, if that makes sense.
It does. It is. I'm like, oh, remember you said something about that. I'm trying to find your words. Um, I think I'm not sure even I wrote it down, but I just remember that you said you are meditation or something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so yes, because so yeah, this is getting into a very important point, is that there is a sense of doership for most of us that are in a body, right? I'm going to work, I'm doing this, or I'm going to go, I'm going and I'm doing healing, or I'm meditating, right? So I'm meditating. I have what's called, it's answered the sadhana, a practice. I sit and I meditate for an hour every morning, and my bells, and I om, and the incense, and there's a ritual, and there's a ritual and a practice around it. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but that isn't it. Like, what this is in a way is yes, meditation, because I believe you communicated, I don't want to be oversharing, but that you're like, I kind of have a difficult time meditating. Like, like a lot of people say this, right? Like, I just can't sit for that long. And so there's several things happening when in that scenario, but what I would get to the gist of it is that what I'm pointing you to is just your effortless self, is your effortless being, and just being present and allowing yourself to be totally effortless. That the effortlessness of just being, like, you are a human being. You're not a human thinker. You're not a human worker. You're not a human sufferer. You're not a human doer. But many of our societies will tell you that that human, oh no, this is you are your thoughts, your feelings, your senses, right? And what I would say is meditation is actually just being present. And if you have a practice to do it, that if it's something you have to do to get there, there's something about that that actually means if I can go there, I can go out of there. And in reality, there's nowhere to go. That how is it that you have to try to be effortless? I mean, do you see the paradox? And so the problem, though, which is legitimate, is that for many of us, we sit and I'm just trying to be effortless. And if we have time, I can do a short guidance with you to just take you into your own place of effortlessness, and just see if you what it feels like to share in this space of just being.
Mm.
And this is there might be for a period of time a sense of I have to practice to do this, but this is a trick of the mind. The mind is telling you that, oh, you have to do this to feel, oh, okay, I'm at peace. Meditation, in many senses, is a way to torture you. That's why when you sit, you're like, this is very uncomfortable. I can't do this for very long, right? Because it's torture. But it's torture so that you give up on this. Because what happens when you sit? What, do you feel like ants are all over you? Do you feel like there's all these thoughts in your head? Like the thoughts are coming, let them all be. Like being your effortless self is just to allow yourself to be. And it's actually tuning in to the spaces. I'm slowing down because I want you and anyone who's listening to this to just begin to be aware that there's a space between every word that I'm saying. That the words are not important, but that the space between each word is where you should put your attention. This emptiness, silence, effortlessness, it's the space between thoughts, it's the space between words, it's the space in which the sound of the bird arises from, the call of the bird, and disappears into. That's why we do the chime when we ring a chime in meditation. It's not the chime, it's where is the chime arising from and where is that sound going into? And we shift our attention there. This is gold. This is the space of your effortless nature that nobody ever told you and nobody ever pointed you to because it's not very exciting. This is this is the word of the extraordinarily subtle. So I would say for anybody that has a meditation practice of any kind, don't stop it, don't get rid of it, but realize that your meditation, that space of it's just being aware. You are very present. You're aware of the silence. You can this, the mind is a bundle of thoughts in this context. That's when you're sitting there, all the thoughts start to come, feeling, you're like, the mind is a bundle of thoughts. The original thought, the source of all thoughts is the thought, I. This every sentence that we have during our day, oh, how are you? I'm great. I'm this. What do you know? I am a man, I am a woman, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a fireman, whatever. Like it's all about identification. This I, your psychological I, your egoic I construct is not who you are. It is a part of the expression of your manifest self, and it may have some significance, but truly to be in a meditative space is just to be aware that you can go look to the source of that original I thought. That there's different pointers to point you into the silence, whether it's just listening, putting your attention. Where do you choose to put your attention? So if I'm meditating and there's thoughts around me, I choose to not pay attention to. I choose to put my attention here, or I choose to put my attention to the source. Can I see where is this thought arising from? Where is the thought I arising from? If I set all of my thoughts aside, everything I've been told about who I am, all my identity, I just let that all go, set it outside. Any thoughts about the past, any thoughts about the future, any concerns about even this present moment, any interpretations of the present moment. If I set all that aside just for a second, and I look and ask myself, what remains? It's just a looking, it's a pointing. This can take you to in a fraction of a second. If you can do this for a fraction of a second, there's an infinite spaciousness of your pure being awaiting for you.
Wow.
And you can take that with you all day. You can go to work, you can do everything, you can have a life, and you can still be aware of all of that unfolding before you from the spaciousness of your effortless nature.
Yeah. I'm imagining like taking a drop of that, just a drop, it's gonna open up a lot. Um, but yeah, I'd love to reserve like the last 10 minutes or so for a little taste of what you are talking about. And I definitely needed to hear what you said about meditation, because I do tend to go into the dogmas of things if I'm not aware of it. And a meditation, I mean, one meditation techniques, but I think the whole, if we should put it all together, the meditation tradition, there are definitely strict rules around it depending on which school you ask. And for me, the problem is only the actual sitting part. Like my back is gonna hurt, and so I do moving meditation, but I do wish to be able to sit longer. But I'm not sure if I want to do it because the school is telling me to do it. The tradition is there, and I kind of want to live up to that, or if it's because I cannot access this spaciousness that you're talking about. And
Yeah. So you're saying that you have physical pain when you sit.
yeah,
Yeah. You have pain, of course. That would make it very difficult.
yeah, like after 10 minutes, it's like, ah,
Yeah. Meditation is not about sitting. There's nothing to do with sitting. If it did, anyone who is wheelchair bound and couldn't walk would be an amazing meditator, right? They're always sitting, right?
yeah, yeah.
You
So
know, the thing is that the what I'm describing for you, Mana, it's right here for you. There's nowhere to go because you can't help but be this. And sometimes it takes being in the presence of somebody who is already just in that space of awareness. They call it satsang,
mm,
which means um so it's being in association with sat, which is truth, beingness. There's different word. The words don't really describe what it is. This what I'm describing to you is your effortless nature. What do you call it? Some people call it God. Some people call it bliss. Some people call it love. What it is it's who you are at your very core. And all of the karmic woundings, it's not your fault. It's the you're carrying the weight of thousands of generations that is in front of your face, like a blind, like thick glass, and you're trying to see yourself through it. And there's a way to just set it aside and just be present. And there's and and sometimes working with somebody like myself or another healer can help clear some of that glass out of the way, clear some of the, so that you're like, oh, listen, I have a client that, and this does not happen all the time, but I've been working with a client pretty regularly for the last several months, at least since June. And she said to me, I'm sleep. She goes, when I'm sleeping, I'm suddenly like, I wake up, I feel very refreshed. But she's like, all night long, I'm not exactly asleep. She's like, I'm aware of things, of the fact that I'm sleeping. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting because what I'm describing to you is actually part and parcel to your deep sleep. So when you go into a deep sleep, we love sleeping, don't we? We
Yeah.
love that deep sleep. You wake up and you're like, how did you sleep? Someone, how did you sleep? Ah, oh, so rested, right? Well, what happens in deep sleep? Not a single thought. You know what when you go to sleep, do you know what you leave behind? Everything. You leave behind anything anyone told you about who you are, your identity, and if your lover is next to you, they're gone too. You are asleep, nothing, blank. But this client is still conscious. And you know, want to know why? Because what remains there is who you really are. You're just pure consciousness without a single thought. That's why you're so happy when you wake up and then you spent hours not thinking, not identifying, not suffering. Now you can take this with you all day long. And yes, you can take that as your meditation, like just being aware. Eckhart Tolle calls it being present. You know, Papa G calls it silence.
Mm.
Somebody might call it stillness. The stillness isn't sitting. It's like everything is going on around you and you're aware of it. Even feelings and thoughts, they're just moving through you. They don't define you. You are by just residing present. I say, residing in the space of your heart. Sometimes I'll just put a hand on my heart to remind myself to be here, like to lower the mind into the heart. I want my daily prayer is, burn all that is not true. Like burn everything that is not true. Like, let me lower my mind into my heart and purify my mind in my own heart. Like this is like your divine center where your light is emanating. But there, for many of us, there's some layers in front of it. And we're like, really, is it there? But this is tuning into the most subtle of the subtles. Anything that is not subtle is observed, and anything observed is not you.
Can you just say that again? Anything that's subtle is not what absorbed?
Any
Observed.
anything that is not subtle, so the gross
Mm.
things that are gross, not subtle, are observed, right? Hearing,
Can observe it. Okay.
smelling,
Mm.
thoughts, memories. These things are observed. Feelings. Oh, I'm angry. so happy. You know, this is the dance and the play of the manifest world. We're in a body that has senses. The dance and the play of the manifest world are all these things. They're all of being observed, that you are observing them. There's something in you that some people call meditation that is observing everything, right? They, in the Buddhist tradition, one of the things they call mindfulness. I say mindlessness. No mind. No mind. The mind is active. Okay. Leave it alone. When you plug in, when you put your username and password and log into your thought or the feeling, oh, you may be going down that spiral, that little rabbit hole you described,
Yeah.
right? Oh, I can't meditate. You know, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, leave it all alone. Like let it do its thing. You know, you don't resist it. As you leave it alone, it slows down, it loses power. It's like the unplugging of a fan. You know, you unplug your fan and it's still rotating, but it slows slower and slower. You have to unplug and just be present, just be aware. Take that with you to work, you know. And this particular client told me, they're like, I go to work, I'm not engaging in gossip. People are asking me, why aren't you speaking? Why is there something wrong? There's nothing wrong. There, she's beginning, and this was not, we weren't even talking, I wasn't talking to her about any of these things that I'm talking to you about in our sessions. She reflected this back to me because she did so much. She was so ready and so open to release things that were harming her, her health, her well-being. She said, remove all blockages, you know, basically was her, whatever's blocking me. And there was deep work that happened, right? Deep old stuff and, you know, whatever, it was moving out of her, a lot of just stuff moving out. And all of a sudden she starts describing these things to me. And I was like, this is wonderful. I mean, this is really, this is it. And you know, I'm not telling this story for people to compare their own healing experiences to, because we are all on our own timeline and our own, and sometimes we're not ready to see a healer, sometimes we're not ready to even look into the spaciousness of our own heart. This, it can be scary for people to be like, well, what do you mean I set myself aside? Well, who, you know, what about me? Yeah, okay, you're not, you know, it's okay, those are great questions. And also, you know, go there when you're ready. You know what I mean? We're all on our own timeline, our own path,
Sure.
and there's no right or wrong about any of it. There's no judgment about it. But if you can look at everything in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the joy, the wonderful things, the things that just make you just want to sing and dance, if you can look at all of these things and just be aware of them, not even, don't even plug in to the most joyful things. I mean, the joy will move through you. It's good. It's great. Whatever. This is like you're dancing the dance of your manifest life, whatever that means, whether you want to go climb the highest mountain or you want to just sit and doom scroll on your Instagram for hours and then, you know, whatever. That's all fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of it. This is just how the dance is unfolding for individuals, right? You know, it's like you know, I know somebody that described once to me, they said that they took a bunch of psychedelics, they connected to their higher self, and what they heard this voice was saying that was like showing this particular person, like, look, like there you are on this, like literally, like, you know, hiking, climbing up this mountain, and their highest self or the great spirit was like, yay. And then it was like, and then I saw myself just watching, you know, hours and hours of Netflix, like, you know, and then, and you know what, the great spirit was like, yay, you know, because none of it really ultimately, like, it's yay for whatever. But if
Yeah.
you can be that place of just yay, no matter what's unfolding, this is a profound thing. And it's really for everybody. It's a very subtle shift of your attention. It's a very subtle, it's like looking at something from just a little bit of a different angle. Because the question, Manna, for you and for anybody here that's listening to this is, are you the main actor in the movie of your life? Right? We all are, right? I'm the main actor. There's a movie playing out in front of you. This movie is what the Hindus might call Maya,
Mm.
right? This is like the illusory the manifest world, which in the Hindu tradition and the Buddhist tradition is considered an illusion. It's an illusion. There's an underlying reality, which is this place that I'm pointing you to of just awareness, the sense of just, I am here, I exist, I am aware of all these things. And it doesn't mean you can't still enjoy and live your life and dance your dance and do all the things but when you do it from this space, you're taking that joy with you into everything you do. And then you won't be suffering when things are not going quote unquote good. You'll just be aware of that. There's an energy here that's sort of lower vibration. You allow the feelings to come up and move out, but you remain here, like remain present. Just be yourself, be your real self,
Mm.
and just be aware of what's going on. It's like you're the audience member watching the movie of your life unfold. It's a three-dimensional movie unfolding every moment, and it's unfolding. It's unfolding right now for you and I. This is consciousness enjoying consciousness through the eyes of consciousness. We're one thing enjoying ourselves through just consciousness. It feels peaceful. This vibration of that is the what arises out of just being present and aware, allowing yourself to be effortless, is what arises as our attention is just here. Like, and can I be aware of awareness? This is very subtle. Am I aware of that? There's a perceiver, there's something here perceiving. Can I be aware of this perceiver, of awareness itself? This looking is very gentle looking in. And it's very subtle. But when you're doing this, what arises from this space is the fragrance of love, the fragrance of peace. This is the fragrance that's coming up. How can you separate the smell of the flower from the flower itself?
Mm.
You are this thing I'm describing. It's just we come into this world like a blank and we forget. We forget. And we're still carrying the karmic wounds and we're triggered by them, but we forget this just effortless, peaceful beingness, the happiness in which we are. And all I can say is that we love to taste the honey, the sweetness of life, this peace, this joy I'm describing, right? People, I want to be happy, I want to be at peace, but we don't want to be the honey, right? We want to taste the honey. And what I'm saying is you can have your cake and eat it too. You really can. You are the honey. You can taste the honey of the joyfulness, the peacefulness of your own effortless being, and you are that. This is the nuance and this is and also the part that's hard to put to words about this non-dual world we are. Consciousness, enjoying consciousness through the eyes of consciousness. However that unfolds, very peaceful though.
Oh, yeah, Matthew Obst. I knew this was gonna be good. Really good. Beautiful, beautiful. Good. I want to say a couple of things, and then if we could do a very short meditation, um, we could close with that. Well, I just wanted to say, I just thought to myself, and I'm gonna share it when you were saying, burn, burn everything that isn't true, right? Burn
Mhm.
everything that is. It's just so Scorpio, and I mean, you are born in the sun sign of Scorpio, so it's particular to you, but it's in anyone has Scorpio in their birth chart, so maybe you can recognize it if you're into these sort of things. I definitely recognize it from myself. Even the client who said remove all blockages, that's as well as like that kind of extreme willingness to just clear and purify. That is
Yeah.
Scorpio archetype for sure. And I just want to mention just one synchronistic thing that the the teacher I was interviewing last week here on the channel was born in the same degree of Scorpio sun that you are, 27 degrees. And that means that it's the same that I told him is that you right now, and it's a process for I'd say actually a year. I mean, it's a process. Uranus is in that degree, is around those degrees, 28, 27 degrees of Taurus. So meaning that anyone who's born around there, there's a major um, there's I mean Uranus is like the higher perspective, and it's the creative solutions, um,
Hmm.
and the sun is our purpose. So when you have the sun opposing Uranus, it's like you're going this, I don't know, but a release or some kind of like you can, it is, you can experience it as coming out wider. I mean, to more people, for example, because Uranus is also about community. And if it's not to do with the outer world, then at least it's tapping into a higher knowledge. It's a higher perspective on yourself and your purpose. So it's a big one.
Yeah, and we're wrapping up to the end, and I just want to, and I want to touch on what you're talking about right now. And what I would say is that the guidance, the meditation, I've already been saying it all. This is what I've
Yeah.
been pointing, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So there's
I
no
just think,
need for us to end with that. But what I would like to say is that when you're talking about astrology, I was recently watching a science fiction. I love science fiction. I was watching a science fiction program, and it's like, oh, we're the future and we know everything. And this is like, it's very like a Star Trek-ish type of thing where, and they're like, it's like worshiping science in a lot of ways, and I remember they visited a planet in this show where the people, if you were born under a particular birth sign,
mm,
you were arrested and put into a camp because they thought that you were dangerous, actually.
mm,
And so they arrested the people. It's from the show The Orville. They arrested some of the crew because they said their birthdays were in this particular month. And what the captain who's espousing science and the truth of science, and mind you, I think science is divinely inspired. I mean, it just is. I mean, look at the Greeks. They were really into their divine paths, as well as the Arabs. I mean, they were us. A lot of our science comes out of these ancient cultures, and so, but what I'm saying is that he was like saying like, oh, how could these people be so ignorant and think that that somehow a birth sign or something would affect something in the manifest world, right? And I was like, as much as I enjoy aspects of the show, I'm like, it's just such a point of ignorance, is that from a deeply spiritual standpoint, and what I've come to understand in just my own, like, I don't espouse belief systems. I'm really, if I'm sharing anything, it's because it's something I've tapped into and have discovered for myself. And I think anybody on a spiritual path or the life path of any kind, it's like, believe your experience, like what you know to be true, right? Like this is like tuning into the heart. And when I know to be true for myself, I'm not telling anyone to believe me, but what the reason why I think astrology is very powerful is because that oneness I described, the non-dual world, if we are part and parcel to everything, if this whole manifest universe, it's like it's one beating heart of consciousness, how could we not somehow be affected and molded, and that especially in the space of the manifest world, by the great heavenly bodies,
yeah.
by the stars, by the moon? I mean, there's a reason why ancient cultures were building giant astrological and astronomical way stations, places in which they were tracking these solstices and star systems and the giant pyramids in uh in Central and South America and Mexico that were actually aligned with star. I mean, this is a grand intelligence that people are tapping into. There's not tapping into, it isn't, the way science will often put it, when you listen to much of anthropology and things, is just, it's almost like portraying these people as just being completely ignorant, and like they're just worshiping these things because they're there. This is their television, was the night sky. That's one way you can put it. Or maybe these folks were tuned into something by their being exposed to these things in a way that we're less exposed to, except for people like you, because the night sky is blotted out by the lights of the city, for example. These things are very subtle when we tune into them. So I just wanted to say that in honor of the work that you do, and that my sense is, yes, we are so interconnected in so many ways, and there's a reason you and I came together to reflect on these things today. That's beyond just my complete understanding, and that's okay too.
Sure, for sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, okay. Well, I agree with you that this has been all one meditation. That's how I feel when you talk, that when you go into that flow, a wisdom portal, and it's just, yeah, it's beautiful, really. It's an experience to listen to. So thank you for that. It's music. It's a sort of music, Matthew. That's what it is. Thank you so
Well,
much for being on tap, and we'll speak later.
Matt, thank you for having me.
I'll share your email address with people, right?
That would be great. Yeah, the greatwolfhealing at gmail.com.
Good. I'll put that in the notes. People can reach out.